As the fates would have it, I wound up getting a job with United Artists in New York City. It was the only studio based in New York City at the time. And I had the great fortune of meeting Ben Melniker.
My son Charles told me that a young lawyer with whom he was working at United Artists said that he would like to talk to me about Batman.
I tried to explain to Ben how I thought Batman could really work as a movie, why it was important to do it dark and seriously, that we could really reinvent the whole genre of what is a comic book movie, what is a comic book superhero.
I did tell him that I thought his ideas were absolutely electrifying. And the next step, of course, was to make the deal with DC Comics. We did make the deal to secure an option on the motion picture rights, including animation, but excluding television, for Batman and all of the characters in the Batman world.
And on October 3rd, 1979, Batfilm Productions, Inc. was formed, the deal was signed, the money was paid, and I thought we were off running to the races. Much to my surprise and chagrin, I was turned down by every single studio in Hollywood.
These studio people we approached didn't like the project. And after maybe 5 or 6 or so of rebuffs like that, the thought occurred to me. A person I knew, Peter Guba, and his partner, Neil Bogart, had a company called Casablanca. I put the call in, and I don't think I had more than a 2 to 3 minute conversation with Peter when he said, "Get Michael and come out here right away."
I think it was about 3 days later, we were in Los Angeles, pitched the whole thing in person to Peter, and he said, "I get it, serious, dark, this is what we're gonna do. Go into our business affairs guy and don't leave here until we have a deal." And about 3 days later, we had our deal, and thus began what would turn out to be a 10-year odyssey to bring Batman to the silver screen.
At that time, we were associated with Universal. The property itself was a DC comic, and DC was part of Warner Brothers at that time. And we looked at the project, presented it to Universal as a project to develop, and they passed on it. At that time, Frank Wells was the top mojo at Warner Brothers, and he was eager to get the property back under their wings because he looked at it as an asset that shouldn't be developed or exploited away from the Warner's family, since they owned the legacy of Batman, and it was a cornerstone of the DC comic company. And I remember that his eagerness led us to a deal with Warner Brothers, and I think that was really what started the whole process going.
When I came to Warner Brothers in 1980 and Bob Daly came a few months thereafter, they had, of course, at Warner's made Superman. Batman was the next DC hero who everyone felt this is the way to go. I asked to be involved in the development process, and the process, became legend.
There's making the movie and getting the movie made. They're two different things. It sounds like, how can that possibly be? Well, it is. They're just completely different, and they actually take different skills. In getting the movie made, Superman played an enormous role, and Dick Donner did a brilliant job with Superman, and it was an enormous success. It was a different kind of picture, and so it provided the momentum and the celebrity and the attention of Warner Brothers and the recognition that they shouldn't let these assets out of their keep.
Superman was a kind of a trailblazing movie in the sense it was the first big-budget comic strip that ever made money. Conventional wisdom said that comic strip movies were not going to make money.
That first Superman movie was superb, and it brought families in, not just little children. It made people realize, hey, these are more than just little comic strip characters. These are fascinating characters, and they're incredibly imaginative, and they're visually exciting.
The biggest obstacle was trying to find a tone and direction, and for us all at the studio to agree on that. We went from various extremes. Joe Dante, who went on to direct many movies, including Gremlins at the studio, and Ivan Reitman, who did Ghostbusters. Many, many people wanted to be involved with the creation of Batman and writing and directing.
They naturally wanted to follow up Superman with Batman, and I was sort of the logical choice. But it pretty quickly became obvious to me that you couldn't write Batman and Superman the same way. They're totally different characters.
When I created the Batman in 1939, he was a dark, brooding vigilante, and his general genre changed in the mid-60s with the advent of the television show in 1966, where it became campy and comedic. And I prefer, if I had my druthers, I'd rather have the dark, profound, mysterioso Batman rather than the comedic one.
I think Batman had been haunted by the 60s show for years after that show had ended, and I don't think there was any way to shake that in the public's mind until some of the better-known comic book works of the mid to late 80s came out. Around the time that Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns came out in '86, that really charged up Batman's look, and it really redefined the character as a dark, grim, and gritty character. Once movie producers saw that, they said, yes, that's the Batman we want to do. We want to return to the very early, stylish, artistic roots of the character, and that's something that the audience hasn't seen, and it looks nothing like the old mid-60s serial.
By and large, the translation from the comic book to film or to television has suffered the more it's gone away from its source material. That is, the campy old TV show of Batman was essentially mocking the source material, but it was much campier than the comic book had ever been. If you look at the most successful superhero movies of recent years, they've been the ones who are truest to the old comic books.